Did you ever want to get disruptive and cause some real trouble? I'll be right back. Hey there, Gracious Gang. It's Mike from thegraciousguest.org here with you, where we're all about showcasing wonder and awe, and I am so delighted to join you today with a really awesome interview. Before we get to that, though, please make sure you do all those things you got to do, right? You got to subscribe to this channel. You got to like this video. You got to share it far and wide. Friends, family, anyone that you think might be impacted by this, and I really appreciate it. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you give us a good review, and also share this far and wide as well. It really helps get the word out, and I'm doing a lot more interviews lately. A lot of good content lined up here on the Gracious Guest Show, so I really am looking forward to hopefully hearing from you guys some good feedback. Let me know what you're thinking of the show and any ideas you have for future episodes, guests you'd like to maybe see me chat with. I would really appreciate that. So, jumping into the interview today, I am joined by Derral Eves, who's the executive producer of The Chosen, which is just an incredible show, and I'm sure if you're clicking on this, you might already be aware of it a little bit. I'm wearing my The Chosen t-shirt. I have my t-shirt and sweatshirt on today. It's the first multi-season TV series about the life of Jesus, really, and it's told through the eyes of the apostles. We really get to know them, the chosen, the apostles and his other disciples, Mary Magdalene. We get to see Jesus' mother, Mary, of course, and it's just such a beautiful show that has really impacted me. It's impacted my wife, my family. It's impacted my students that I've shown several episodes to, and it's just a really fresh, powerful, very, very relatable, and I think very fair and historically accurate, or at least plausible in certain cases, portrayal of our Lord. Derral and I had a wonderful conversation about his involvement in The Chosen, how that all got started, some of the impact that he's seen, that he and Dallas Jenkins, the director and the main writer of the series, have been able to witness over these past couple years, and just the incredible outpouring of support like never before. This is truly a unique project that's impacting people all over the place, and they want to get it in front of 1 billion people. So this is going to be awesome. I think you're going to love this. Check it out. Here's my interview with Derral Eves, executive producer of The Chosen. Derral Eves, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Mike, to be here. I'm really excited.
Well, yeah, and it was funny because I was digging around on YouTube, which you're of course no stranger to by any means. So, and I must admit I'm routinely adding videos of yours that pop up to my watch later, and I'm going through them, and taking all sorts of notes and stuff along the way. So I've really appreciated all your work with trying to help folks grow their channels and really figure out how best to use this platform. And then, sort of as a side note, I then came to discover your not just involvement, but your real sort of core involvement and promoting and just everything you're doing with The Chosen from the very beginning. It's been really incredible. And so I just wanted to ask you, for those who may not be familiar with you at all, just, anything about your background you might want to share about who is Derral Eves.
That's a deep subject.
It's difficult.
For a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. Look, at a young age, I got really obsessed with video. And it was about 1984. Empire Strikes Back was just kind of hitting, and Return of the Jedi. I just love that. I love film. And then I got really wrapped in the world of ads. I saw Super Bowl ads. Apple came out with a Wrigley Scott ad that was just amazing. And it was like introducing the Macintosh.
Yeah.
And then Wendy's also had this amazing disruptive campaign that just made me laugh a lot. It was "Where's the Beef?"
Yes.
And I just was very fascinated by that. And at that age, I started to take a little notebook around with me and ask people what they liked to watch. And, I started doing these surveys and quizzes, especially after the Super Bowl. I just wanted to see, and I started to see patterns, at a young age, at 8 years old. And I knew I wanted to make, Super Bowl commercials. That's what I wanted to do. And so I was always fascinated in advertising and marketing, and kind of been able to kind of grow up a little bit. And my interest didn't change too much. I was always obsessed with why do people respond to this but don't respond to that?
Right.
And I got my degree in marketing and advertising, and had an opportunity to go work for a firm in LA that made Super Bowl commercials. Like, okay, here's my shot. But when you asked who is Derral Eves, this is probably the core essence of it. Was I didn't want to leave my family. I'm a family person. I wanted my future kids to be able to be close to grandma and grandpa, and I wanted their best friends to be their cousins. And so I had a choice whether I go take the career in LA or Chicago, which had two specific offers for that, or I needed to divert my path.
Sure.
And so, after some prayer with my wife, we just decided, you know what, it's more important for us to rear our kids around family than to go pursue a career in doing Super Bowl commercials. And so I then kind of checked that off my list of things that I wanted to do. But inside, I just always wanted to do it. So I ended up starting my own agency, and I did it in small town USA. And I was working with brick and mortar businesses, and it kind of eventually went to a level that I never thought it would. So I started in 99, and in 2005, I was on Craigslist because I was expanding my company, and saw this ad for a new website called YouTube. And I went there, and that's where my worlds collided, because I was seeing video content like in no other, like, online. And this is kind of hard for a younger audience to understand, but like back then, when you hit play, you'd have to wait for it to all the way load, and then it would play. But on YouTube, you could hit play, and it'd just play. Like, this is like groundbreaking stuff. And then you can embed these videos on websites and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it all started. And then I learned very quickly, just doing videos for my clients and so on, I didn't necessarily want to make Super Bowl commercials. I wanted to make content that people would talk about. That's what it just kind of hit. It hit. It's like, oh, I don't necessarily need to do that. I just want, what I was really wanting is to have content that people would say, did you see this? Did you see that? And that's where it led to doing some of the most disruptive campaigns in the world from small town USA, And I was like, okay, this is cool because I can do it anywhere in the world. And
absolutely,
I can do this. And so that's kind of where it all started for me. It just led from project to project. I'm a consumer of knowledge. I like to read a lot. And so I do believe the people that do contribute to that knowledge pool is important, because if I'm always a taker, then it doesn't balance out very well. I have to give just as much as I receive. And so on YouTube, I gave people tips and techniques of how they can improve, and started a conference where people can come learn the business side of it. And is that
Vid Summit? Is that correct?
Yeah, Vid Summit. Yeah.
And you released a book earlier this year. Is that correct? Too?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Wall Street Journal's bestseller, but who's got that?
And I do recommend it. I'm this is totally just a free plug here for Derral's book.
Yeah.
The YouTube formula is great so far. I'm really enjoying it.
It basically tells the story I just did in 5 minutes, but it does it in book form. But then it really digs deep into the algorithm and how to really succeed with content. And I just thought, if I just keep it for myself and for my clients, then I'm not really achieving the goal that I want to achieve. This will be the last statement I say of who is Derral Eves, but I know why I'm put on earth. I understand it. Like, I'm a husband, I'm a father. That's my first priority. Like, there's just no, that's kind of where it's at. But then after that, it's like I'm meant to accentuate light. So I believe that we live in a very dark world, and there are evil forces and content that kind of drags humanity down. We're able to see that. And I found that I can identify people that have certain talents that God's given them, and they know how to create. Well, I know how to get that creation in front of people. And I know how to market it. I know how to get people talking about it. I can go from there. And so that's the projects that I've been doing, is really looking after those projects that would accentuate light. and that attracts people, and we're able to do so much with it. And that's been kind of the story of me. So like for me, I love video. I love God. I love my family. I love video. I love making disruption in the world, because I think we need to disrupt the world. So.
Well, and it
So
seems
that's
like
me in a nutshell.
it's so perfect, because then that's like, it's just so, I am a big not believer in coincidence, if that's the right way to put that. But so then, so all of that and all of those unique experiences for you over several decades, growing up and molding you into this specific unique person that you are, and then here comes Dallas Jenkins,
Yeah.
And so could you tell us just a little bit about how you got involved with The Chosen? Because it just seems like exactly what they needed, or what he needed, what you both needed at that perfect moment.
It all started, believe it or not, with a unicorn, and I'll explain that. So I did a couple projects with Jeffrey Harmon, who is one of the founders of Harmon Brothers Agency, and we did one project. It was like the largest nativity. It was the biggest YouTube collaboration, and we were both producers on that. And he was like pitching me an idea for an ad for a company that I knew that was close to me, and it was for Squatty Potty, and I'm like,
I've seen the ads.
I got to do this. Like, I got to do this. And so we ended up I was an executive producer, project lead with Jeffrey, and I'd communicate with the team and the client, and ideation, and just the whole marketing strategies there. And he and I work really well together, because we see YouTube a little bit differently, or video differently. And we also see the way to distribute differently. And so we're like yin to the yang, and it works out really well. And that campaign did $45 million in attributable sales in 12 months, and it was like the biggest viral campaign of ad history.
Yeah,
and that's where it started. And so I'm a big believer in teaching people and being transparent. So I put a conference on that you mentioned, Vid Summit, every year, and I invited Jeffrey to come, and he and I did a co-presentation on the Squatty Potty campaign. All the ins and outs of it. And that's kind of where it started. And then the next year, I always reach out to the people that keynoted my conference, say, hey, you always have a free ticket for the Life of Vid Summit. Are you coming? And he goes, I can't come this year. I'm starting up studios and can't really do that. I got way too much going on. I'm like, okay, no problem. So the day of the show, I have 3,000 people that are in LA, and we're coming together, and I get this random text. Hey, is my ticket still good? And it's coming from Jeffrey. I'm like, well, of course it is. I'll see you there, right? So he flies down from Provo, Utah, down to L.A., and he gets to the conference. He's like, Derral, you got to watch this video. I'm like, did you just fly all the way down from Utah to L.A. to show me a video? And he goes, yeah. I go, I don't got time for this. I'm like literally putting on a conference here. I'm like, couldn't you just email me? And he's like, no, you just got to see this. You got to see it. I go, I don't have time. And I went to walk off, and it kind of hit me. And it's not that I was being disrespectful for him. I was like literally.
Right, you're like really busy.
This is like the craziest time of my life is during these events, right? I don't sleep or whatever. There's just so much going on. And so I go to walk away, and I'm like, I thought, you know what? He just flew all the way from Utah to L.A. to show me a video. The least I can do is go watch it. And I turn around and says, how long is it? He says, 18 minutes, 19 minutes. And I go, okay, that sounds good. Let's find a place, right? So we found a place. We sat down. He pulls out his Chromebook. It was like an 8-inch Chromebook. It was like yay big. I was like, how are we supposed to enjoy something on an 8-inch Chromebook, right? And that was the first time I saw a short film that Dallas Jenkins made for his Christmas Eve services for his church.
Yeah.
And
that's the shepherd, right? Is that the
shepherd?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I immediately identified that it was low budget, but the character development was so good. It was done so differently, and I'm like, whoa! It was like flipping the story in a way that I never thought you could flip the story. I never thought, hey, what was the shepherd's life like?
Yep.
And I'm like, hey, it started to hit me. I got the feels going on. And there's a moment that it just set me over the edge, which was this shepherd. All he wanted to do is learn about the Messiah. He's always being kicked out. He was kicked out by the other shepherds, like he was the lowliest of all the shepherds. He was treated differently, and he has a desire to learn about the Messiah. He goes into a synagogue, and they're preaching, and he's ready to learn. And they basically kick him out because they say that he's unclean. He's not clean enough to be there. And what happened next was he left the synagogue, and he got interrupted by a guy that was, kind of trying to figure out where the well's at because his wife needed some water. And come to find out, that was Joseph and Mary. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I love this twist to it. And then what happened next, it just wrecked me. It completely wrecked me, which was, hey, the well's over here. And then he goes, oh, wait, no, I got water. And here he is giving Mary water. And for me, how symbolic that was, because she's about to give birth to the everlasting water. It's like, how symbolic is that? I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, I'm all bawling. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get this knock on the door. Derral, we need your help. And this is my conference still going on. I was oblivious of anything that was going on because I was so pulled into the content. I got up and I turned to Jeffrey. I says, I know where this is going, and I don't care what I do. If I just hold the light, I need to be a part of this project. And he goes, good. I want you to meet the creator because he needs someone like you. So the next week, I met Dallas Jenkins for the first time. And I can honestly say I've worked with some of the biggest creators on the planet. Like I have. I could name drop a whole list or whatever. You could read my book, one or the other. But it's like when I met him, it was like, oh, wow. Because like our perspective is very, very synergistic in the way that we view life, the way that we view, content and so on and so forth. But he's just an amazing content creator in so many different ways. And I'm like, it hit me. Like, we could build an audience around this guy. This guy can be an influencer. We can literally build an audience to raise the money that we want for the TV show. And then he shared his vision that he had for the TV show. And I'm like, sign me up. I'm ready to go. Yep. And the thing I love about Dallas is there was not any vetting. He just knew that it was right. And we started our business right then and there. Like we literally did. We had zero money in the bank, zero followers, but we had a really, really, really good idea and his vision for the show. And we had really good partners, at that time of having Angel Studios be the distributor of it. They're not partners of The Chosen. They're, it's a separate organization. But they'd give us the freedom to kind of do what we wanted to do, which is a really important step. And that's kind of how we got all started with it 4 years ago. 4 years ago, October. And what happened next was we literally did everything different than what you'd normally do.
Tell us a little bit about how.
It was like usually, when you're doing a TV show, you have to have, so many different things. And so we have this pilot. It's not exactly what we want, but it's close enough. And then sharing the vision. So we kind of shared what we were trying to do. Yeah. And we were able to break the all-time crowdfunding record in film and television. Sure. And at that moment, we were always giving content out. So we believe that we're a content creation machine. And we're putting content out to help people understand what we're all about, what the vision is. And so you see a lot of live streams and videos with Dallas all across the board. But it was like getting the messaging out. And then as we got the money in, then it was like, okay, we're making the show and we're showing the behind the scenes. So we're doing behind the scenes before the movie even came out or the TV show came out, right? Right. And then when we start filming and just bringing people along the journey, and that was really, really important for us because like we couldn't do it without the 19,000 people that made it possible. Like there's just no way. And then two, like if we would have done it the traditional Hollywood route, then someone executive level says you can't do this, and they make the final decisions on that. And that's what's wrong with Christian media when it comes to Hollywood is that they're not Christians. And even if they are, they might not have a really good understanding of the Bible, or someone's telling them, no, it will be better if you do this. I mean, have you seen Noah? Have you seen Noah? Yeah. If you haven't, then just go watch that and just see how accurate that is.
Yeah. But it's that's how the shock value or something like that. Yeah. Oh, well, and it's so funny because I mean, it's so just very briefly. So my background is pretty weird. A lot of different stuff from the army to youth ministry, and I worked in radio for a little while, and I've been teaching high school now for 7 years, so high school theology, and so I mean, I really grew in my own faith through, especially through college, and then when I was deployed to Iraq, and just through my time in the army, and really came to this much deeper sort of my more personal relationship with Christ, I'd say through those experiences, and what's amazing is because of my own journey, like I found movies and shows and stuff that really meant something to me over the years. But I ran into a lot of them, and I'm not trying to speak ill of anybody, but they were just cheesy, or it just didn't quite, like, it doesn't seem like that's it, and so it was right during the pandemic, when you guys made it, available to everybody for free, because I had heard of The Chosen, hadn't gotten around to it yet, and we had our second daughter in May 2020, like right in the middle of the pandemic, and so I still remember to this day, like, and I'll never forget, like. Remember to this day, it was only a year ago, but 2 years ago almost. But laying with her, like those first few weeks and stuff, when you're just trying to, like, okay, my wife's sleeping, I can hold the baby for a few minutes, or whatever. She's not really sleeping through the night yet, and I would just watch The Chosen on my phone, and I was just like, I saw the first episode or two. I'm like, oh, this is great, I'm loving it, and I was like, I want to save these and go through them. I just started binging them all. And then, of course, I loved, when the binge Jesus stuff started coming out. I'm like, oh yeah, so we were very affected right from the get go. What we have appreciated so much, among other things, is exactly what you're saying there. As far as this, there's just something different about the feel of the involvement. Like, we feel part of it, and have been able to, in our own modest way, to contribute a little bit too, in other ways, and not least of which sharing it with others. And so I wanted to ask you about that aspect of it, especially this, maybe speak a little bit more to the whole, like the marketing of it, so to speak, or this idea of getting people to share it and pay it forward with each other, and what you guys have seen that lead to.
Let me do this differently. I don't think I've ever done it this way in interview, but and I'm not comparing myself to or the project to the example, but when the Messiah did come and he started his ministry, it started with one person, and that one person became two, and then two became four, and four became eight, and people talk about it, and that by far is the most impactful way to change the world, is when you can change people's hearts. And so for us, the project wasn't about, it was about good storytelling, but we were able to do a different approach. And I can tell you why it's different is because our focus isn't necessarily, like, the key role is not Jesus. The key role are the disciples that he called in their lives,
right, and
how they were impacted. And we're like, wait, they have problems like I do. They're sinners like I do. Because I can't relate. I can't relate to Jesus. I can't. Like, he's perfect. He's divine. I don't even know what that means, and, but I can relate with Peter. Like, he and I, we got a lot in common,
right.
And I get the frustration. I can get when he's, like, ticked off at Matthew, and I can get, all this stuff. I get that. And so I think that's the reason why it connects deeper with us. And then two, we do believe that, this should be seen by 1 billion people. And part of our marketing process is to not for us to put it in front of you, but to enlist other people that love the show, that they go from viewer to fan to an army, right? An army of people that just like do it. We have people every day sharing The Chosen. They feel like, do you know what? This is the easiest way to get people to come to know Jesus that will lead them to the Bible, the ultimate source, right?
Right.
Get them on the knees, the ultimate way.
Right.
And if we're able to do that, that's great. And so I think it merges your two passions together, great content, something that's easy to talk about because it's not preachy. We're not preaching at all. We're just basically going through the life and ministry of Jesus Christ, but it's not done preachy. But it's very impactful because we see transformation of people. We see people's attitudes. And more importantly, I think we see a lot of what's happening today that happened 2,000 years ago when he
Right.
started his ministry. We see hatred, bigotry, racism. You even see where Jesus starts his ministry not only to the enemy of the Jews, which is a Samaritan, okay? Like they've been fighting for thousands of years, but to a woman, which is unheard of. Like
Right.
just basically starting his ministry there, saying that he's the Messiah to a woman that is their enemy. But more importantly, is to a woman that was the enemy that the people of Samaria didn't even like.
Right.
Like she was like cast out. So I mean, she's like the lowest of the lows. And I can only imagine that the disciple was like, what's he doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense, you know? And that's what I love. That's what I love. And I think that's what I think that's kind of our inspiration of how disruptive his message is and was and is. And we want the show to mimic that. Like we want to be disruptive. So we're doing things that most people would feel uncomfortable doing, and we have no problem doing it because it's plausible. It is literally plausible.
Yeah.
It could have happened. And all we want to do is give some context of why that was documented in the Bible the way that it was, and give some creative backstory to make it more real. And I think that is why the show's being extremely accepted. And our writers, Dallas and we have Ryan and Tyler, the three of them they bring different elements together to really bring what we have, here on screen.
Well, yeah, the collaboration's been incredible, and I've really appreciated the behind-the-scenes stuff, as I know everybody has, from the interviews to those panels and getting the perspective. Of course, I'm in my case coming from a Catholic background, and so I've been so inspired seeing this beautiful ecumenical nature of this whole project, and Jonathan, who I love him so much, and he's been so inspiring to see the humility in him, the humility in the other actors, and we've appreciated. I think it's hard to pick a favorite character. I don't really feel like I have to do that, but we've been so affected by Matthew. Is it Paris that plays? I think that plays Matthew. Yeah. His portrayal of Matthew. Who plays Philip? I'm drawing a blank now. Is it oh my goodness.
Yoshi.
Yeah, Yoshi, that's right. Yeah. And it's just all of them. Like we've just loved every minute of how diverse their personalities are, how it opens so many wonderful brotherly type moments. I grew up with several brothers, and just that headbutting, it's always there, right? But rallying around this they all have this individual call from him, and seeing that challenge just in these early seasons and knowing there's so many more to go, it's just been so thrilling every step of the way.
Yeah, and like Jonathan is super talented, and I can't even imagine the weight that he carries. Like I can't even I can't even imagine that. But one thing that I can say is, and this is what I do love, is every character. When Dallas was coming through the development of that disciple or that character that interweaves with Jesus, he wanted it to be a certain type of person. And one of my most powerful moments of The Chosen is the Beatitudes.
Yes. I was wondering if you'd bring that up.
I'm telling you, I love that. I love that part. It's just because it basically showcases why Jesus would call different people with different backgrounds and different. I mean, you had a zealot, like you had someone that was like an assassin, ready to take on.
Oh man,
how you do that? And a tax collector and fisherman. I mean, come on. And but I think that really brought it together in a beautiful way. Where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about it that way. And
was that something they had picked out from the very beginning, as far as like a roadmap for those specific characters?
Absolutely,
that's so awesome. Yeah, because we didn't see that till the end of season 2, of course.
Yeah, that's Dallas's gift. Like he has a lot of gifts. So the thing that he's able to do is humanize it, right? I think Tyler's really good at the religious and historical references, and Ryan's really good at just the framing of the plot and so on and so forth together. And then Dallas just makes it real, is that human emotion. And so, yes, 100%, they identified what type of character traits they wanted to see, having Matthew even on, spectrum,
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah.
and there's reasons why. I mean, if you've ever read the book of Matthew, I mean, it's pretty detailed in a sense, like why genealogy, like all the begats.
We love. I sometimes rewind it that kickoff segment, right, of season 2 with the future jump. But I was just watching it the other day and I was laughing so hard when he's just like, why wouldn't it need to be precise? Mine will be precise.
Exactly.
Of course, that lines up.
but that kind of shows the nature of the show, right? So it's like everyone has their gift, and then too, let's use Parse for example, because when I read the scripts before it was done, and I'm like, okay, Peter's gonna be my favorite. I can see myself in him, but his skill that he has as an actor to really bring that character, man.
Yeah.
You just gotta love that kid. You feel bad for him every moment. He's just oblivious to all this stuff that's going on, and the whole Shabbat thing just made me just.
Yes.
I mean, I read it in the paper or like the script.
Right. Then you see
but there's
it
a difference between seeing it. I'm like, holy cow. And now, dang that actor, every time I read the book of Matthew, I just hear Parsons voice in my head when I read it. I'm like, gosh.
And I know we were really impacted, and I know it was neat because I saw some of the follow-up. I know there had been some, I don't know if controversy, I guess the word controversy, but there had been some discussion at least about maybe differences of opinion with some folks, and just some discussion after that season 2, was it episode 3 with the campfire and that long shot and everything, just incredible, everything about that episode. But the way I showed that to my students, I've shown a couple episodes to my students, and it's like nothing I've ever used in class before, as far as me, just, I know others have told you guys that, but it's one more reinforcement of that. And we talked about it, and it was just so dead on of like, this is tricky because, I feel like the way this is being portrayed, I feel bad for Matthew. I feel that he is in this tight spot, but what he's doing wasn't good either, and like that tension of
he literally was a traitor.
It's like you have to appreciate, like the PTSD or like the trauma that Simon, like Simon thinks he's about to lose everything and his wife, and just it's like this wasn't easy for these people to welcome this. However, it really played out, right? There are elements certainly that we even see in the Gospels. It must have been there.
Well, this is what I love. Mike, this is what I love is look. We know for a fact that Peter was in Capernaum. Mm-hmm. He had a wife. Mm-hmm. We know that because he had a mother-in-law. Because if he has a mother-in-law, he was married, right? So we know that. Yep. We know that he has a brother named Andrew, and Andrew was the first one to discover Jesus, right? Yep. We know James and John, the sons of Zebedee, were living in the same town. We know that Matthew was a publican in that town. He literally was collecting taxes, and from there. And we know that Peter had a business. He had a fisher. He was going out and fisherman, and we know that he had to pay taxes. Right. Now, what I didn't know,
and they weren't low.
I didn't know at the time that it was like 70% of all their increase would go, and then the Pharisees on top of it would tithe them. You'd have to do that. So no wonder why everybody was starving. So you're telling me the personality of Peter trying to give money to who he thinks is a traitor,
right?
Like, how's that relationship going to go? Like, because like everything's plausible. Like everything right there is plausible, know. And this is one thing that I do love is we as the chosen don't mind getting close to that line, but we'll never cross the line. And let me kind of explain that is. Dallas and the writers, there's the whole thing is it plausible? Could this be the reason why? And we don't know what the reason is, but that's where the creative license come in. But when it comes to the Bible is the Bible, and we will not put words into the Bible. There'll be that segment. Like what I love is the interaction between Nicodemus and Jesus on the roof, and when it's quoting the Bible, that's so amazing. But there's like a story leading up to it, and there's a story after it that kind of married together. But my favorite part was you saw John on the steps, and they're like, "Did you hear that?" And he's like, keeping notes.
It's so great. He's just it's like this is. I feel like this is important. Like jotting it down. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that goes to where a lot of people think says, "Oh, Jesus would never do that." And this is what I do want to clarify. We don't know what Jesus would do. and all we can do is, would it be plausible? All I know is there was this moment of the preparation of the Sermon on the Mount. And a lot of people had heartburn over that because, hey, he was carried away with the Spirit and was able to just do it. However, the way that Dallas and the writers portrayed it was it was on his mind, and he'd go out and pray. Mm-hmm. We know that Jesus went out and prayed a lot. What was he praying about? Do you know? I don't know. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I'll bet he was just kind of getting a download of the things that he needed to do, what the Father wanted him to do. Right?
Well, I think one of the most. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No, but what I love about it is the way that they brought Matthew in, and this is what I do know, and I know this because of how I feel when I read the Bible, that Jesus goes after the one.
Yeah.
And if that whole moment was just for Matthew, right, and for Matthew to document it for us today, which it was, okay, it's just getting that moment just right, and I know that Jesus would take care of the one. Now, was that plausible? It could be. Did it actually happen? We don't know. We just don't know where it's at. But we do know the impact of the message. We do know the impact of the Beatitudes and also the Sermon on the Mount. So
we loved it. It was just, we cherished that whole, like, Matthew really pushing back against the whole, like, the salt thing. I was like, I don't know about that. And what is, Jesus says something about, like, oh, what do you want me to say? Like, hey, everybody, just keep doing what you've been doing, because that's been going so great. Like, it's the sarcasm, because there is, I firmly believe, and I've been blessed in my life to be pretty close to several folks of the Jewish faith, some who are more Orthodox than others. And I have always, my whole life, found, like, that unique Jewish sense of humor so charming, and it so reflects thousands of years of such a unique, blessed but very challenging path, And if Jesus wasn't walking around with that sense of humor, nobody was. It makes total sense to me. I think it's
I'm glad
perfect.
You brought it up, because I believe the biggest disconnection of the media when it comes around Jesus is they take the Jew out of Jesus.
Yes.
And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Right. They make him just some white guy that speaks King's English or something like that. I'm like, no, that's not the way it was.
No.
And so what I love about this is, we have different consultants. One's a rabbi that helps us so much with it.
Yeah.
But then two, a lot of the actors that we're using, they have uncles and aunts and mothers and fathers that are from that region.
Right.
And some of them were even born there. So they know exactly what that culture is. Like, there's no debate there at all.
Right.
And so they're able to amplify that as well. But I do believe, just knowing my friends that are Jews, especially with the people that they love, they have this kind of jabbing a little bit with each other. And it's just a fun, playful thing. And I think it catches a few people off guard, because, like, John the Baptist would never do that. They were cousins. How do you relate to your cousin like that? Come on.
I had a very dear friend in the Army who was an Orthodox Jewish guy, and we ribbed each other all the time, and it was just a tremendous respect and love for each other. And one of my favorite stories was he came to pick me up, and I hope nobody finds this offensive. I think it was hilarious. He did.
I already found it offensive.
Yeah, there it is. Just setting up. No, but it was. This was a few years after The Passion had come out, and I had picked up. There was a special edition that came out, and I had bought it that weekend, and we were going out somewhere, and he comes and picks me up. We hadn't seen each other for a few days, and he picks me up. He says, "Hey," he goes, "Yeah, how's it been going?" I was like, "Oh, pretty good. I just said I picked up a copy of The Passion," and he very sincerely was like, "Oh, that's cool." I was like, and I said, "Yeah, there's like a twist ending though," and he just like he just completely, I was like, "Yeah, the guy," he's like, he comes back in the end, and just this like rattling up, like as if, and he just looks at me and he's like, shaking his head, and then, like, he was this big boxer kind of guy. He was like really, really tough guy, and he ordered a bacon cheeseburger one night, but without the bacon. And the reason was he wanted all the other stuff that particular burger had, but obviously not the bacon. And I just I wasn't thinking about it. I'm ribbing him, like, in front of the waitress. I'm like, "Big tough guy like you, get the bacon. What are you doing?" And he's just sitting there, like, he's like waiting. He's like shaking his head, and I'm like, "Just get it." Right.
Oh yeah.
He's
oh
just,
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like, okay. Yeah. So, but just that, I think there's this, again, ecumenical opportunity here, and even this, again, this opportunity of this interreligious sort of dialogue, I think, too, with this, I mean, you guys, I think, are obviously making this attempt to be as accurate as possible, to bring all these different voices in, and I really think that definitely matters to people, and I know you guys, I mean, you know that way better than I do.
Yeah.
You know, so well, maybe some of the feedback would be good to ask you about, like, that you guys have gotten in that regard.
Well, we have the hater feedback. It's quite aggressive.
Who doesn't?
You know, we're heretics. Like Dallas is the biggest heretic that ever walked the face of the earth.
Right. Sure.
And then I'm a close second, I guess.
Yeah.
but like, no, I think people are very concerned that are, overly sensitive to it. And not to get super critical with them, because I honestly don't care what they think. We're creating content that we need to, and I know Dallas feels the same way.
Sure.
But there's a lot of similarities where there's just different faith backgrounds that they get very, very critical if it's not the way that they perceive everything, right?
Sure.
And perception is definitely something that we're all learning, and how we grow is how we expand our perception to what God's perception really is. And sometimes we're really, really limited. And this is another analogy that I'm not comparing Jesus with the chosen by no means, but when Jesus came and was just disrupting the first century, there's a group of Pharisees that were very critical with what he was doing, because like, you can't heal on the Sabbath, but he's he's been prophesying. I mean, he was the Son of Man.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now,
Right.
And yet they were so blinded because you can't do these things. And I think we have modern day Pharisees. I think we have different people that are critical, and then we have people that ultimately just hate the show. And I'm okay with that.
Sure.
But what we're trying to do is our main goal is we want 1 billion people, not 1 billion views, but 1 billion people to see an authentic Jesus. And we believe that Jesus isn't just a stoic person that's just God, right? Mm-hmm. Jesus, when he was in his ministry, he's part man. He was the Son of Man.
Yeah.
He was there to gather. He was there to, have relationships. He had a mom.
Right.
He interacted with his disciples. And so, showing that, it rubs some people wrong, because like, you can't do that. Well, we just did. Right. And the reason why we did is because we want to introduce the other side to that audience, And I think just seeing the beauty of the messages of, oh my gosh, my daughter was so touched, or I was so touched, or I was at this level, and now I'm back, going to church. I'm back reading the Bible. I'm, deepening my relationship with him just because of the show. We get thousands of those a day. Like we do, like DMs and all that stuff. It's making a huge impact. But we also get the hate comments too. And like any great project, you can't please everyone. But the ones that we are really bringing value to, it's leading them to the ultimate source, which is not the TV show, because I want you to let you know it's just a TV show. It's leading them to the ultimate source, which is God. Either through the Bible or through prayer. Yeah. Going back to church, whatever it may be.
Right. Well, and it's so fascinating, because just two quick things that came to mind when you were talking earlier about specifically, the part where Jesus is preparing, for the Sermon on the Mount, and I think in a similar category within the show itself, in terms of things that really jumped out at I know for me personally, season 1, episode 3, that Jesus loves the little children. That's very often. That's an episode, if I'm going to bring someone, like with my students, for example, I find that episode, because that's like the real first episode where he's at the center of an episode, right? Because
he literally
the first
only
two,
had 5 minutes.
He's very briefly the first two, but within that episode, the clear, and I know this, a lot of the kids don't. There's a real biblical sort of illiteracy I'm working on with their generation a lot of times, but this idea of, it's got the Garden of Gethsemane written all over it, right? That first, I mean, this preview of like, here he is, he's alone, he's nervous, he's praying. We can't hear exactly what he's saying for most of it, but then at one point in that episode, it's only for a brief moment, but when he's addressing the wound on his arm,
Yep.
And it's like, I pause it and I'm like, you didn't have to do any of this, God. Like, I'm praying, I'm like, you didn't have to, you could have done this any way you wanted. You chose to come here. You chose to be vulnerable from the very beginning, being the most vulnerable of all, right, in the manger. Yep. You let yourself get wounded at work, and he's not healing it, like waving his hand over it or something. So, yeah, so I think that there is, a lot there to this balance, though, of, and I don't know how the writers do it. I don't know how Jonathan does it, but I've never seen anything where there's a better balance between, yes, we see the human, very, very approachable, understandable human side of Jesus, relatable, I should say, but that's never at the expense of that divine, that mysterious. It just seems to me like the perfect blend where you're feeling really chummy with him, it's like the beat drops, right? No, he says he does something so divine. You're like, whoa, and you get the chills. But it's like, it's just so amazing, that balance he finds.
Well, I think it comes back down to this, is because everyone focuses on the divine side and you don't bring the human elements in. And I do believe that the what you just explained, the balance that we're able to find is the most plausible thing in my mind of how it could have been, right? And
right.
I look at being part human, part God in God in flesh, basically.
Right. Yeah.
You have to embrace both, and what I mean by that is to truly understand people. The humanity side needs to come into the equation, right? And if he was just always just like everything was pristine and nothing was out of order and nothing was a challenge.
He's just glowing as he goes around.
Yeah.
Cecil B. DeMille kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we would totally be missing out on, what the Jews alone had to go through to understand the higher law. And not saying that he needs to understand higher law. He's God. He understands everything, but he also understands the importance of this. And yes, sweating and working with his hands and, calling people and starving happened, and it happened. And yes, he could call upon the powers of God at any time, but he wanted to do the Father's will. He wanted to make sure he did the Father's will, and that had to be the Father's will in that regard.
And somehow mysteriously, it's better for us for him to do it. I mean, it doesn't add anything to him, No. But the idea, because I've used this example with my kids in class sometimes, that there's so our eldest daughter's 5, our youngest is 18 months, and every now and then the 5-year-old, like even with the 18-month-old to some degree, I'll involve them in helping me with something that it doesn't make it quicker for me, it would just be easier for let me just take care of it. But, Daddy, can I stir the soup? Like, yeah, come on up, and I make sure she doesn't burn her hand. Like, she has no concept of the dangers around it, right? But she really is being involved in it. And I think that's a good sort of lens for seeing all these things that God does that just, why? I don't know. It's because it's better for us somehow,
Yeah, and what I love about it is God is the God of timing, and our time is not his time. It just never is. And I love that in The Chosen too, is because, yes, he could do all this much, but is it the right thing to do, and is it the right time? Is it the God's will to do that? And that's always on his mind, and I love the show. I love the show so much. And I mean, I can fanboy out even though I'm one of the producers of it, but it's so good because, you're seeing these things weaved in that you didn't really have context before, but yet it's plausible that could be the reason why he taught what he taught and what he did. And one of the episodes, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen the show, but when he goes into Samaria and James and John just don't want to be there at all. That episode it wrecks me because of a couple things. There's a family that was in need, and as they served them through James and John, making a field ready, but also feeding them when they were hungry, in that a story came out that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so good, and it was could have been a parable that Jesus taught, or it could have been
very
a
biblical,
biblical, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that one coming. And then what I love is the moment when he leaves, he just took that one last, just kind of joke, that was meant for that one person. But it's like, that is what I believe. I believe that Jesus knows exactly what we need, and he knows exactly how we need to do it. And I believe situationally, he knows how to pull through the world and connect with you individually, right? And give you exactly what you needed. And that's what that guy needed in that episode. And now, did that happen? Probably not. But the reality is did things like that happen in Jesus' time?
Sure.
Absolutely.
That's I remember, it's almost similar to something I remember hearing years ago. I love the was it 1970 or 72, the Patton movie with George C. Scott, that classic Patton movie. And there's the famous scene where he runs out like with his pistols, like shooting at the Messerschmitt plane like flying over something. And I remember reading somewhere that those closest to Patton, like when being asked about like historical accuracy, that those closest to him, I read in this book somewhere, bio or some article, where they said, look, that moment as you see in the movie never happened, but only because that particular event being described happened so quickly, George didn't have enough time to get his pistols out and run out and do that. They said he absolutely would have done that, like if he had like another minute. And so that's that idea of like, okay, there always has to be some sort of historical license. I love the 1998 DreamWorks Prince of Egypt movie. There's a lot of biblical inaccuracies in it, but it works. It's perfect for its audience. I show my kids the scene where Moses, kills the Egyptian, but it's done almost like an accident. And I'm asking my kids in class, I'm like, why do you think they might have done it that way? And they're thinking about it. They're like, because like little kids are watching it. I'm like, I was like, maybe they're not ready yet for the fact that Exodus says Moses specifically looked around and made sure no one was looking and then killed the guy. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like, so yeah, that's and I think you guys, you know your audience so well, and what I love is it is a pretty wide-ranging appeal, because it's not some kiddie thing per se that has its place, but it doesn't have any content. I don't think that's something I'd be concerned for like my daughters to see. Our 5-year-old loves The Chosen, right. And so yeah, I mean, Derral, we could talk so much more forever about this. I know we're limited on time here. Let me just maybe get to my last question for you, which is just kind of, overall, I mean, any sort of, kind of closing advice or just encouragement, any perspective you want to offer to creators, to artists, to writers, filmmakers, anybody like that who might be wanting to do that work, maybe not overtly something about the faith, but I think sometimes we try to force that in instead of just making something that's true and good and beautiful. And what advice might you have to them, who might feel like they're up against impossible odds sometimes out there in our world? Yeah. No, I love the question, and I really do appreciate it, because I feel like this is a question that's meant personally for me, not necessarily from this conversation, but this is something that I've been on a quest with for my whole career. Is we live in a world of darkness, and there's so much negativity that comes at everyone that lives here, and we can see the polarization and the problems and the issues. And the darker the world gets, there needs to be beacons of light. And your gifts and talents that God gave you, whether it's through music or the spoken word or media or just being a good example, like that light needs to shine. It's literally the light, and you need to put it on a hill, and the hill is getting it out there for the world. Put it on social media, getting it so that people see things differently, and be that beacon of light. And I do believe that if you do that consistently, people in a dark world will see the light and will gravitate towards the light. And once they gravitate towards the light, they're going to be impacted by what you're actually doing. And so it doesn't need to be religious in nature, but it needs to be praiseworthy, of good rapport, wholesome. That is light. Truth is light. And if you're presenting it in that way, from education to inspiration to entertainment, that's what the world needs now than ever before. And I do believe that if you can just do it consistently
and you understand the value that you're changing, from a viewer to whatever, or someone that's reading your articles or books or whatever. It's just really understanding who the viewer is, and then the platform to get the most reach. And that's what I encourage you to do. And I know a lot of people are really shy or not understanding social media, but you got to go where the people's at.
Right.
That's what Jesus did. He went to the people, and I think that's an opportunity where that light can project, and it can not only change your life, but it'll change the life of others that are actually enjoying the gifts that God's given you through this. So,
amen. Well, Derral Eves, thank you so much for being my gracious guest today. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Well, I appreciate it.
I feel so truly blessed that Derral was able to take some time out to spend with me here today and talk about this wonderful, wonderful show that's just truly transforming lives, and is a wonderful, wonderful way for you and your family to get a beautiful depiction of our Lord and the apostles. Some great conversation starters from this show. I can't recommend it highly enough. So do yourself a favor if you're not familiar yet with The Chosen. Everything is through their app. If you just go and download the app, it's super easy. Any app store you have on any mobile device, you can go ahead and get it and just look up The Chosen. You get the app, you log right in. It's totally free to watch the whole thing. 2 seasons they have out now. They're starting to work on a 3rd one. And basically, that's all I have to say about it for now. Go check it out for yourself. Again, share this video far and wide. Share The Chosen far and wide. God bless you guys, and until next time, don't forget to wonder. Take care.